The Injured Senior Podcast is here to help. Like it or not, the senior and elderly population is vulnerable to negligence committed by medical professionals, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, pharmaceutical and medical device companies, insurance companies, and everyday individuals and businesses. Your host, Steve Heisler, creator of the National Injured Senior Law Center, has been advocating for seniors' rights for over 30 years and is bringing you answers to your questions. This is the Injured Senior Podcast.
Well, howdy to all in our injured senior, elderly, and aging population community. As you know, my name is Steve Heisler, founder and CEO of the National Injured Senior Law Center. And you are tuned in to, yes, another episode of the Injured Senior Podcast. Now, for those of you who are new to our show, the Injured Senior Podcast is a show dedicated to discussing legal and medical issues of vital importance to the injured senior, elderly, and aging community, and to their children, loved ones, and caregivers. I want to quickly say thank you to the National Injured Senior Law Center for their kind sponsorship of this show. The National Injured Senior Law Center represents senior individuals who are harmed through no fault of their own by the negligence of others. For more information, go to injuredseniorhotline.com. Also, please check out our new website at injuredseniorpodcast.com. That's been a long time coming, and it's finally up. You can download our latest special report, The Top Danger to Seniors in the Hospital, by going to injuredseniorpodcast.com. Okay, let us jump into today's show. There's nothing more despicable than the exploitation of the aging population, let alone any age group. Elder abuse occurs in many forms, including financial exploitation. Now, according to TrueLink, a business that provides account monitoring software for seniors and their families, financial elder abuse and exploitation accounts for more than $36 billion in losses to seniors. Ladies and gentlemen, that is just reprehensible, as I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. Now, Dr. Peter Lichtenberg is here today to discuss financial exploitation of seniors and the elderly. Dr. Lichtenberg is the director of the Institute of Gerontology and the Merrill Palmer Skillman Institute. He is a professor of psychology at Wayne State University in Michigan as well. He's particularly interested in the area of intersection between financial capacity and financial exploitation. In 2013, he published the first nationally representative study on predictors of older adult scam victims. In 2015, he published the Lichtenberg Financial Decision-Making Rating Scale and the Lichtenberg Financial Decision Screening Scale. These tools can be used to assess major financial decisions and or transactions of older adults. Hello, Dr. Lichtenberg. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Steve. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. It's great to have you here. Now, I know you're settled in Detroit, Michigan, but you hail originally from Philadelphia. And, so the next time I watch Rocky, I will definitely think of you. All right. So Rocky is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Absolutely. Listen, I still get the Philadelphia Inquirer online. So my heart is close to Philadelphia. My mom always said, oh, you'd move back here in a heartbeat, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the scene where he beats the heck out of the slab of meat in the meat house, it just, that's one that just never leaves my mind. I always think of that. It was just such a poignant scene. It's a great movie and it's a great city. So the next time we get together or whatever, post pandemic, you're bringing the Philly cheesesteak.
Sounds good.
Even though I'm a vegan, we'll figure it out. Okay. Okay. Seriously, can you tell our injured senior community a little about what is financial elder exploitation?
Sure. Thank you. It's very simply the misuse of an older adult person's funds. And it's either through a theft or a scam. Either someone's stealing the money or they're misleading and misrepresenting and getting an older adult to give them money.
So how would you differentiate that from elder abuse, or is it considered a form of elder abuse?
It is considered a form of elder abuse. And, if you take aside identity theft, in which there's really no interaction, it's considered a form of elder mistreatment where there is an interaction and there is a trusted other. Even if that trust was established over just 10, 15 minutes, it's a trusted other who abuses that trust and either steals or misleads the older adult into a scam.
Yeah, we had Paul Greenwood on the show back in, when we started out many episodes ago, but he talked about elder abuse and he said financial elder abuse was very prevalent. How prevalent would you say it is?
Yeah, and it's growing. And part of it's growing because we're becoming more aware of it, but part of it's growing because older adults are getting more targeted. It's the second most common form of elder abuse, about 5% a year, Steve, of adults over 60 are reporting being exploited. A little bit over half of that's within the family or friends, and the other half is about strangers.
So what do you think are some risk factors for elder financial exploitation?
Yeah, so some of the risk factors that we found, let's talk about fraud and scams and then exploitation kind of within the family. For fraud and scams for older adults who are cognitively intact, we found that psychological vulnerability and financial vulnerability. So feeling a lot of financial strain, depression, sort of invisibility within one's community, those really were risk factors. Anybody can be defrauded, scammed, but those folks were scammed at 2 to 3 times the rate. And so 1 in 7 were being scammed when they had high depression and low sense of status, visibility within their own community.
So do the scammers, do they just, are they tuned into elder or senior individuals who meet those characteristics, or do they have any way of knowing who's going to be more particularly vulnerable, or do they just go ahead and try every senior and see where the chips may drop?
I think they try a wide range of people, but they really look for these factors. So, we talked about abuse of trust as sort of a fundamental thing, but financial entitlement is a second thing. And this is where a lot of times within a family, adult children are feeling entitled to their parents' money. And one of the things that we found is you and I would call that theft when they actually take that money. But they don't see it that way. They see this as their inheritance and they're just using it early. It really puts a wet blanket on discussion. Finances have become a taboo topic. In our national study that we just published on, Steve, representative of older adults across the country, over half said they wish they had someone to talk to about their finances. And the scammers know this, and they present themselves as a very sympathetic ear at first to talk to about whatever you want to believe, religion, politics, finances, and then they'll sort of turn the screws on for you to step up and either win money or give to somebody in need, or if they can figure out that you're so lonely, maybe try a romance scam. So they're very adept at this.
And how are they communicating, or what way are they getting access to these elder individuals?
A lot of phone stuff, but they use all mediums: mail, email. And once they get a connection, like picking up the telephone, even if you're going to argue with a scammer, that increases your risk there 20 times.
You can't win,
Because,
huh?
You can't. You think you can, and you might be able to as an individual, but for 100 people, all they need is one or two that they can say, hey, yeah, I understand other people are like that, but that's not what I'm about, and get you talking and so forth. They make a study of this. They are really professionals at how to persuade and how to influence. And then once they get you, they don't let up. For example, one individual who was involved in a romance scam, they really wanted a lot more money from him. So they started calling him round the clock, every hour. He was getting phone calls. So he wasn't sleeping, wasn't really eating. And within 3 months, he had sent about $700,000 to his beloved, who was, of course, didn't even exist.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's sad. I mean, it's really sad that someone is in that state of mind that they would even fall for something which seems like so crazy, But, I think when my grandfather died back in the mid 1980s, my grandmother was living alone in Florida. And when she passed in 1993, my parents went down to empty out her bungalow, and they found in her closet every imaginable knickknack you could think of, that was purchased. And this was back in the mid 80s. So I don't even think there was no home shopping network, whatever, but somehow they, the scammers got to her and sold her everything imaginable. And then I guess you said depression and maybe loneliness is a big factor. So if someone's lonely or depressed, right, aren't they more apt to be, to want to fall in love or want to do something that, can make them happier? So that might be
Absolutely. And really what they come to crave is this connection. And so that is one avenue in. A second avenue of huge risk factors is cognitive decline, early cognitive decline or early dementia, really where there's memory loss and problem-solving loss beyond normal that it really starting to interfere with people's abilities. So they lose their ability to manage their money. That is, they lose their understanding of how much money they've given. For example, one grandfather thought he had given his grandson $2,000 when the investigators went out and interviewed him across the year. It was actually $180,000. The grandson,
quite a difference.
Quite a difference. And this happens all the time. You see this in long-term care facilities, the friendly visitor that keeps coming in and the bank account starts dwindling for this older adult, or in senior housing and so forth. And it's that sense they've started to lose their memory a bit. They're still very functional in other regards, but they need that protection financially because somebody's taking advantage of that early cognitive decline.
So, Dr. Lichtenberg, you work with older adults making financial decisions. What are some of the most conspicuous faulty decision making that they make?
Yeah, to make an informed decision, you really have to have four elements. You have to know what you want to do. You have to be able to communicate your choice. You have to know why, reason and rationale for doing it. But you also have to understand sort of the implications of that choice and appreciate the potential consequences. And what we find is that older adults who get in trouble, they're making decisions with their heart. So they know what they want to do, they know why, but they're not informed decisions because they don't truly understand or appreciate how much financial risk they're putting themselves at and what the potential risk and consequences are and how much money they can lose. I'll give you a quick example. A grandmother, thankfully, she never went through with this. We were able to stop her. She wanted to buy a house for her grandson. He was unemployed. He had no way of paying for this house. She was just going to put the down payment on it and co-sign with him. He'd be, quote, responsible. Well, he had no way of of doing that. And she was saying, well, this is what I want to do. And, it really makes me feel good. Well, that's her heart, but her head couldn't get around it. And when we showed her and just talked about, well, what would happen if all of a sudden you had to make all these payments? Oh, I couldn't do that. And so we showed her kind of the legal, when you sign a document like that, what happens. And fortunately, in that case, we were able to avoid it. But it's a good example of somebody not being able to put their head into the decision. And so it's not an informed decision. And that's really what we're stressing. Everybody's allowed to make bad decisions as long as they're informed decision. But if you're not making an informed decision, we're really going to try to help you see the light of day.
So how are you able to do that? So you are heavily involved in helping elders with situations involving financial exploitation. How are you able to get to them, or how are they finding you so that you can help them out?
One way that we're doing this is we're working with all across Michigan and Wisconsin and other states, Adult Protective Services. They're a social service agency that investigates all financial exploitation claims. And we've created this screening scale that you mentioned. So we've trained them on our website and get online training and certification, but we also do some coaching with them. And so that they are sort of some of the eyes and ears out there using these scales, being able to identify sort of the shortfall and work with the clients. As they've told me, sometimes, Peter, we've saved over $1 million because the client may have $700,000, but we saved the rest because going through the scale, they've come to see the light of day that, wow, they're really highly at risk and they're not going to see anything coming back here. No, so we're excited about those kinds of, even if we can save $10,000, we're excited about what we can do to intervene before all is lost.
So you said about 50% are family exploiters and the other are strangers.
Yeah.
It's got to be very disheartening when it's involving the family. What do you see most amongst the family members who are exploiting their parents or their grandparents or what have you?
First, we see vulnerability in the older person. All of a sudden, maybe they've had to give up driving. Perhaps they've started to have some cognitive decline, or as we said, some loneliness, and maybe some physical disability, not getting around, in pain maybe. And so we see that older person then become a little bit dependent on some help from a family member. And we see this family member then maybe become a power of attorney, maybe become a fiduciary another way, start to feel that sense of entitlement and absolute power and just reach in and grab the older adult's money. So that we start to see them justify this, the exploitation in their own mind as I'm entitled to this because I'm helping mom or dad out now. And I want these other things.
How often are they prosecuted, or do they mostly just get away with this, or are we seeing a trend towards more prosecution and accountability on the part of these family members?
State by state, we're starting to see the states try to tighten the laws so that there are some consequences. For example, if you're a fiduciary and you've benefited this way through exploitation, you can't inherit, if it gets challenged. So that's a good example. But really, most people are still getting away with it. It doesn't, it's very expensive to bring it through the court system. I do work as an expert in the probate system a lot, and it's very expensive proposition for somebody to kind of bring in evidence about this and to actually get accounts frozen and get a conservator appointed and so forth, especially if it's challenged. And so these exploiters are able to kind of shield themselves through how difficult the system is to work when they're exploiting one of their family members.
Is there any, liability on the parts of financial institutions or caregivers or whatever who might not be, complicit or intentionally complicit, but just negligent and not recognizing that something is not going right?
So the Senior Safe Act, which was passed by Congress and signed into law in 2019, is really trying to get financial institutions to understand they need to train everybody that works there, all their employees, about financial exploitation, decision-making. And we're seeing some benefits of that. The Consumer Finance Protection Bureau gets these suspicious activity reports from deposit institution and from money service businesses like MoneyGram or Western Union. They've seen a quadrupling increase in these reports over, from 2013 to 2017, and about $2 billion a year of suspicious activity. And so I think the financial institutions are starting to understand that they need to do more. We still need them to continue to be pressured to do more and to actually have some more skin in the game in terms of penalties and so forth, I think, because they are able to track this. They can see dramatic changes in expenditure patterns very easily.
They just have to want to do it and actually make it a policy that's just something that has to be looked after and definitely examined, right?
Right.
So, Dr. Lichtenberg, you created 3 scales to help financial exploitation investigations. Can you describe them?
Sure. And we just created a 4th one, which actually, let me start with the 4th one, which is brand new. And it's called the Financial Exploitation Survey. It's on our website, olderadultnestegg.com. That one, older adult themselves can go on our website, go on our older adult landing page, take this survey and see if they are at enhanced vulnerability for exploitation. And then we give them some ideas for next steps. The other 3 scales that
they go to your website, they would go to oldernestegg.com and they can actually be directed to the survey, which will let them know whether or not they're being exploited or not.
Whether they're at higher risk for being exploited. Exactly.
Okay.
Whether they have some of those vulnerabilities that are associated with cases of financial exploitation. And also on our website there, we have, for those who've been victimized by scams or identity thefts and they can't seem to get their credit cleaned up, those kinds of things, we have a link for our SAFE program. We'll do some financial coaching with them at no charge and help them out with that. Now, the 3 scales that you mentioned, we created for professionals, and the longest scale is for mental health professionals who are really doing more of an in-depth financial capacity assessment. And they get at these informed decision-making aspects, but also gets at the context within which somebody makes these decisions. If I have a lot of expertise in finances, in older age, I'm going to carry that with me. But if I don't, and I have a lot of uncertainty and lack of confidence, that's going to influence me as well. Or if I have a lot of relationship strain around finances, I feel like people want my money and it's causing strain, or it's very overt. And we find maybe up to 1/3 of older adults are feeling this kind of relationship strain around finances as they've gotten older with one of their family members or friends. So those contextual things can really impact our decision-making abilities. Our 10-item scale I described, this is what the APS workers use and others, really gets at the informed decision-making aspects. And then we have a 14-item, what we call family and friends interview. And this gives the family member or friend a chance to see whether their concerns about an older adult show the older adult to be at higher risk, whether they think this person is at risk of being exploited. And so we have a family and friends questionnaire on our family and friends page that they can fill out and get feedback about, and a report that they can take to a health practitioner or social service practitioner. if they're concerned about their older parent, their loved one.
So the family and friends can actually go to oldernnestegg.com and they can do their own survey to find out whether their elder or senior parent or grandparent is actually more susceptible or...
That's right. Or it's actually even at high risk right now for being exploited. And
Okay.
so this older adult nest egg website, we started with these 3 scales for professionals. We've grown it now. We've got a scale and a website and resources for family and friends and for the older adult themselves. So it's really becoming more of a place for the general public as well.
Right. So like you said, you started out just for professionals who to help them be able to recognize this, correct?
Correct, because there's too few tools out there, and evidence-based tools, research supported, validated tools. There's too few of them, and so we thought, hey, let's create one and let's try to validate it, and then let's try to disseminate it.
So the mental health professionals, this is what they're doing is they're seeing or treating someone for some type of mental health issue. And this is to help them actually be able to uncover whether or not this is going on is that one thing that it does?
Thank you, Steve. Really, this is the intersection of where capacity and exploitation meet, because, and this is how I started too, as a mental health professional, geriatric neuropsychologist. People were asking me to do capacity assessments on these older adults, and I was finding out all kinds of things about exploitation as well. And so and it's at that nexus, when you don't have capacity, you're much more at risk for exploitation. And so that's where it really helps the mental health professional. Most of these folks are doing capacity assessments for whether the person can manage their own money, whether they need a power of attorney or conservator, that kind of thing. And lo and behold, they often, when they find problems in that regard, are also finding the dark side of capacity, which is financial exploitation.
And if they suspect that that's going on after using this, the scales, do they contact you? I mean, do you find that you're getting contacted, or are they directed to go to Adult Protective Services, or?
They are directed to go to Adult Protective Services. They're also directed to find ways to intervene with the older adult to try to help them stop before they make this decision. Hopefully it's preemptively. And there's a number of other resources that we provide for them as far as important websites, reporting places like the Federal Trade Commission, Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, the FBI. We want to direct people to where they should report it. And definitely it's important not to just keep it a secret, and because then you're part of the problem. So if you uncover it, you've got to report it and push it.
Got it. Well, and again, maybe I missed it, but what was number 2 and number 3? As far as on the scale, you said
so
that there was the mental health
professionals. Scale, the mental health
one.
square, and then the screening scale was the second one. That's for anybody that's working with older adults who are making a financial decision, like our bankers could be, our financial planners have used it, attorneys use it. And of course, as we said, Adult Protective Service people use it. And number 3 is when the original family and friends interview was an interview given by professionals to a informant who might give a third-party view on what's going on. So we created those 3 scales. Then we adapted the family and friends one for family and friends, and then we created the new exploitation survey. So we've got 5 different scales out there that are all on our website. All the training for these scales is narrated online, free of charge to use the scales. We give you a report, we give you recommendations, and we give you resources.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources, a lot of tools. You were coming down kind of like to the end of the show, Dr. Lichtenberg. So have you been able to determine whether or not the scales are successful, or how successful have they been, or is it helping?
we're really thrilled about the usage worldwide, actually, UK, Australia, United States. So we're able to track that, or the trainings, the certification, but we have all of our empirical studies are on our resource page for our website. And we've not only validated these instruments, but we've also done some what we call implementation science work to show how best to implement them in your community as a professional.
Okay. So if I'm a senior elder individual who suspects that I might be the victim of financial exploitation, or I'm a caregiver, a child, a loved one, can you give one or two action steps that they can take to get the ball rolling in the right direction?
First thing is, and we have a module on this, difficult conversations. You have to have a conversation with older adults, and you have to do it in a way that doesn't scare them off. You have to partner with them. You have to join with them. You have to understand their perspective. You can't just come in and demand they change. And that's where it starts. That really is where it starts. Then you can start to problem solve. There's a lot of things that we could do in terms of limiting the amount, for example, that goes out of your bank account at any one time, alerts that are put on. You can work with a money manager, reporting, as I said, if it's a crime, reporting to the police and so forth. But it all starts with that difficult conversation and getting
right.
So that
so if you're
you
a
and I
family
are working together.
Yeah. So if you're a family member or whatever, right, it's being able to have that conversation. But if you're actually the senior or elder who's listening to this and says, hey, I get it. I think that I might be being scammed or whatever. What should that person do?
Yeah. Work with a trusted other person. Think about who you really can trust, and always maybe even have somebody, a third person, have eyes on whatever you and that trusted person are doing, just as a kind of a regular check. Because if you're into this and you're sort of realizing it, you might need help to get out of it. And you might need help to, you might need to change accounts. You might need to clean up your credit, and we can help you with that. So you can contact us, come on our website, you'll see the SAFE program, send in some information, and we will be in touch with you and try to help you work through those issues.
That is awesome. That really is. I mean, that, and the fact that you give free coaching or online training, you're actually out to help, not to just profit, and
Absolutely. We are really out to help. We've helped over 120 people with our one-on-one financial coaching. Over half of them get money retrieved or saved. So it really can make a huge difference in people's lives.
That is great. That is just great, Dr. Lichtenberg. Many thanks for coming on the show. I mean, this just flew by. I feel like we were just talking about cheesesteaks. And of course, thanks for educating our community about financial exploitation, of our, the aging population. And unfortunately, it's very sad, but like you said, it's very prevalent. So how can any of our listeners find you? Obviously, you mentioned the website. What's the website address again?
Yep. Older Adult Nest Egg, all one word, .com.
Okay. If they want to maybe email you or somebody about some issues that they might have, would they be able to email?
Yeah, there's a form on that website that they can use, or they can email me directly at aa2275@wayne, WAYNE.edu.
You're not just a spokesperson. You roll up your sleeves and you're actually helping people yourself. So that's
absolutely. First half of my career was outside of academia as a clinician, working with people every day. That's what I love to do.
That's great. And if anyone wants to find you on social media, what are some of the social media platforms that you're on, Dr. Lichtenberg?
LinkedIn's the best one. I'm on the LinkedIn platform. The Institute of Gerontology, which I direct, has a Facebook platform. I personally shifted off of Facebook just for whatever reason, I don't know. And I have yet to become a Twitter person. So I'm still kind of old school.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the Facebook thing, my kids tell me that Facebook is, gone the way of the dinosaurs. And, they kind of chuckle when I say I'm on Facebook, but, that's really enough for me. We grew up not knowing it. There was no social media. I mean, the biggest challenge we had was the rotary phone, so, I mean, that was it, or the CB that we had.
Yes.
Thanks again, Dr. Lichtenberg. We really want to have you back because there's so many other issues, or, we could maybe, zero in on something that might be a particular issue and do a whole show on that. Will you come back?
I'd love to. And thanks for having me, Steve. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Same to you, and take care. And I guess good luck to the Lions. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. But, Injured senior and aging population community. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I want to thank again Dr. Lichtenberg, Dr. Peter Lichtenberg, for appearing on the show today. If you love the Injured Senior Podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. If you want to share your story on an upcoming show, maybe you've been the victim of financial exploitation, we would love to have your input and have you on the show to give us your experience. But if you have any other suggestions or comments about the show, you can go to our injuredseniorpodcast.com website, and there's actually on that homepage, you can click on leave a message and actually leave a message, which we will get, and then we will get back to you. Or you could always email me at steve@injuredseniorhotline.com. As you know, I answer all emails, just like Dr. Lichtenberg. So, I definitely want you to reach out to me if you would like to. So until next time, be safe. Looking forward to next week's show, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Injured Senior Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate, subscribe, review, and share on Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us at injuredseniorpodcast.com and sign up for our newsletter. To find out more or to get help at any time, visit injuredseniorpodcast.com or call 855-622-6530. That's 855-622-6530.